Thank you all so much for being here. We know your time is valuable, so we appreciate you taking the time to chat with us all today. For those of you that I have not yet met, I am Samantha Nicasher, and I'm the head of business development for Site. And then Nikisha Wilson to my left, I don't know where she's appearing on your screen, is our chapter and sponsorship support specialist with Site. So we are the Site team here. And so I'm going to turn it over to Layla Heller, who will be giving us an overview, introductions on the MeetEngland team. And she is the Meetings and Incentives Director, North America for MeetEngland. So thank you all for being in here today for the MeetEngland Insight Expert Forum on Incentive Travel, which is the technical name, and really just getting your feedback on what you are all doing with your programs, looking at the future of incentive travel as we look at bringing everyone back again. So thank you. Layla, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Samantha. I appreciate that. Hi, everyone. It's great to see you all here. Like Samantha said, we're thrilled that we're all able to be here together in this space. And as Nick said, we can't wait to see you actually in person and to be out of the virtual space, at least for a little bit. We're thrilled to be able to host this MeetEngland roundtable discussion through our friends with Site. I want to also thank them for supporting us through this with this project. We're also proud members of Site, so we want to use this opportunity to thank the entire team, Samantha and Nikisha as well. And for those of you who don't know me, as Samantha said, I'm Layla Heller. I am the Meetings and Incentives Director here in North America, so I'm your contact here in North America, whether you're in the US or Canada. I'm based in Southern California myself, so good morning to you all. And I wanted to also say that I'm joined here today, obviously, by Karen McPhee, our Global Head of Business Events, who will be also moderating our session here today once we get into the questions. We're also thrilled to have our chair, our Visit England board chair, Nick Dubois here. Most of you met him already. He was speaking with us earlier here. Nick has been part of the events industry for 25 years and proudly represents the events industry in many senior government forums. He was the first chair of the cross-government events industry. He launched the first all-party parliamentary group for the event sector back in 2011. And we're just so thrilled to have Nick with us here today. So with that being said, before we get into all the introductions and where I introduce everyone, I wanted to hand it over to Nick for a few words. Nick, thanks so much for joining us. Over to you.
Well, thank you for that warm welcome and a pleasure to be here. You know, for the first round table, if you like, in partnership with Site, fantastic. It's an important discussion, not least because we're going to listen to you. We are blatantly trying to seduce you back to England at the first opportunity. But listening to the voice of the customer, listening to the voice of the professionals, it's absolutely crucial. Just a word about me, if I may. You've got a resume, if you like, of my political CV, but that is dwarfed by the thing I'm most proudest of, is that it was back in 1989-90 that I founded my first then events business, which grew into a mice business in its full understanding and meaning of the word. I even ventured into the States and opened a division out in Maryland, just outside of DC. It's in my blood. I know how passionate this sector is, and we are all about it. So if you were to squeeze blood out of a stone, that would be a miracle. But if you squeeze me, you'd get events industry pouring out of me. It really is my first love. So to be welcoming and talking to fellow professionals is always a real joy. Look, obviously we cannot meet in person, but you know, I don't say this with any sort of you know, unnecessary pride, but the reality is here in the UK and in America, we're beginning to get on top of the pandemic. The vaccine rollouts are coming. And you know, that world we all know is getting closer and closer. So this sort of preparation meeting, I think is crucial. It's been an extraordinary, difficult year for incentives business, for the wider events industry. And it's not just about yeah, we all know we want to come back into the live face-to-face events arena. The pent-up demand, I'm absolutely convinced, is there. And as soon as we can loosen the brake, and when it's safe to do so, we of course will. What I think is a notable feature and character, and it's in part because of the different sizes of our businesses that operate in this field. And it's also in part because we are frankly creative and logistic experts, is how swift the sector was to adapt and change. And yet it's that same sector that was the first to feel the full commercial brunt of the pandemic. And sadly, it's in many ways, it's one of the last to come out, but we can plan, and we can plan with some confidence on the way ahead. But it's that creative, imaginative response as we've moved swiftly to fill the space, be it through hybrid events, virtual events, and our planning, that I think is what will make us win through. Here in the UK, the business visitor economy, it's worth a healthy £31 billion to us. So we're talking about $40 billion plus there as of 2019. You are, I say this unashamedly, very, very important to us. And that's why today I'm really keen to hear from you. Obviously, if you've got questions, we're going to do our best to answer them, but I hope it'll be a robust and informative conversation from you, something that we can all learn and benefit from. So I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Nick. What a great way to get the session started. Before we get into the discussion, like I said, as there are quite a few of us here, I just want to have the opportunity to at least introduce all of us very quickly. We're going to start with Lindsay Adams, who's at Performance Strategies. We also have with us Mark Bondi at Victor Incentives and Meetings. Welcome, Mark. Lisa Dreyer at Creative Group. We have Philip Eidsvold at 110. Jen Glynn at Meeting Encore. Teresa Link at ITA Group. Meg Pisani at Merritt's Global Events. We are also joined by Anne-Marie Rogers at Direct Travel. Amy Steinwand at H&R Block, and Andrea White at Nextiva. Since there are quite a few of us, I wanted to make sure to cover all of us there. Thank you all for joining us, and welcome again for being with us here today. I do want to point out that, as you may have already seen, that this is being recorded. It is a closed circle, so we value your opinions, both positive and negative. I wanted to point that out, that it is being recorded for internal use only. We are going to gather all the insights afterwards, but it will not be shared with anyone outside of the organization. So I wanted to point that out to reassure you that this is a safe space to discuss as you wish, and as we want to move forward with the open discussion here. With that being said, I want to hand it over to Karen. Karen, thank you, and over to you.
Thanks, Layla, and thanks, Nick, and thanks to everybody who's here today for our inaugural gathering. We're in a relationship industry. It's good to get to know people, work with people, and we always do business with people that we trust. So we hope that we're developing a trusting relationship from here on in. Just wanted to sort of share some of my thoughts with you. So only 2 of you attending today have not brought any kind of groups or events business to England. So we hope that the chat today will help that to change. Your meeting sizes are from 100 up to just shy of 500, so quite significant groups, with sizes in terms of time 3 to 5 days, and there's so much that you can do within that timeline in England. So I'm hoping that as part of the discussion, we'll understand what your experiences have been, the highs, the lows, and anything in between. But let's crack on with the questions and let's have a great conversation. So the first question is, we've seen in the ITII and Insights research that incentive programs remain an important business tool. So with the rollout of vaccines, passports, fast and effective testings, Meetings and incentives, fingers crossed, are tracking to return in greater strength now, continuing into 2022 and beyond. We see a pattern of local, regional, national, and international groups. As you plan for your return to business, what are you seeing as an ideal incentive? What will it look like? How are you redesigning the programs, or is it business as usual as we depress that pause button? Over to you. Who'd like to open the discussion? I'm going to go Meg. Yeah. On mute, I think, Meg.
Yes, got it. Thank you. Thank you for having me, and I'm so grateful to be part of this group. I love everybody on the phone, so very exciting to be here. So thank you for that. And yes, as we see incentive travel, and I'm sure that you're seeing RFPs come through for 2022 and 23 and beyond, I do think, you know, of course, health and safety will be the top and short term of what the clients are looking for, and we have to really get that across very strongly to the clients that all of that is being measured and all of that is being taken care of, and how it's being taken care of, because that will be the number one thing. But for us, honestly, it's about how the destination is managing this along with everything else that is part of an incentive, with the airline, with the destination management company, with the hotels, with all the different vendors that we are working with to create such an incredible experience. We really need them all to be singing the same song and to be sharing the same message and to keep us as up to date as possible. That's the key.
So I think just hearing you there, it's almost you know, a one-stop shop, should we say? So rather than have lots of strands, you need to go over to there for information in the destination, there for the venue. If everything was in one place and it was packaged, then this is more beneficial for you and easier for you to discuss with your clients. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, when you say package, I'm not 100% sure what you mean by that, but really, if you can just have a clear message about how you're going to handle the health and safety, all the way from leaving their home city all the way through to arriving and then coming back again. Because there's a lot of different, obviously, restrictions and methods of, and we just need to make sure we're not confusing the client.
Got it. So maybe a one-stop shop rather than a package for everything that you need to know knowledge-wise. Got it. Thanks so much, Meg. Anybody else like to come in here?
I'll jump in.
Teresa?
Hi, Karen. You, in your lead into this question, you said in business as usual, and it kind of made me chuckle because I don't know if we'll ever see business as usual again. And I think that just sort of tags on to Meg's, comment that we're all looking at completely different topics than we would have ever even imagined, a year and a half ago. So, but as we're looking forward to incentives, in 2022, 23, 24 and beyond, definitely on our end, we're busier right now than we've been in a long time, and it feels really, really good. And so we do see optimism, and we see people coming back and they're interested in travel. Definitely agree, in your lead up to the question that that's going to happen probably more so domestically before international from what we're seeing so far. And that just ties in with, what Meg was pointing out, that we need to be safe and secure, and it's going to take a little while to figure all that out. But one thing that I think has been a result, and we actually saw, I think, a lead into this coming up to COVID with incentives, was with the younger attendees. Certainly they're really looking for a very customized experience. They don't want to be part of the masses and, maybe the traditional incentives that we've all known for so many years. And I think we were seeing steps up to that, and then COVID hit, and now it's just really kind of thrown us into that world, because what we are seeing with incentives is that groups are looking for smaller, more intimate experiences, and that just kind of leads into that, taking off on that whole customization. So that's one thing that we're seeing, is definitely smaller groups, whether it was a large incentive previously and now they're breaking it down into a more regional experience or whatever that looks like. But smaller groups, I think, are definitely going to be something going forward.
You're on mute, Karen.
I need to be off mute. You were nodding there, Lisa. Is there anything you would like to add?
I can add a couple.
We're experiencing the same thing that Teresa just described, that people do want more customized and they're shrinking their programs, and what we're doing, we're offering travel for people that feel comfortable, and maybe like an IPS solution for, you know, people that don't. We find ourselves customizing programs and filling their niches. Oh no.
We got most of that there, Lisa. We just lost you a little bit, but I think we got the key.
I can add.
I saw, yeah, I'm sorry about that, but yeah, we're doing a lot of customizing and kind of shrinking our groups down.
That's really good. It's good to know that there's a bit of a trend forming. Mark, did you want to come in there?
Yeah, I was just going to say that sort of along those lines that our eyes are focusing more on the individual now, both from the comfort level, but also, you know, it's been the trend as others have commented on the personalization and tailoring the experience to the individual taste. You know, a lot of that starts well before the program with interactive apps, you know, promotional communications, and you know, giving them an individual choice on activities. I think the activities will be smaller groups. We're not seeing a demand for a client, say, with an incentive program that had 400 people now want to do 4 programs of 100. We haven't seen that at all. It's more about really focusing on the individuals, making sure that it's a safe environment. You know, so promoting and providing cleanliness, I think that's going to be around for a little while. I think it's going to take probably a few years before we don't have any kind of health related issues, before this will be in the back of most people's mind. And we might get back to closer to what we would call normal in the past. But, you know, we're promoting the travel protocol, especially on an international level, I think is important. Health checks, testing, vaccination, passports, in whatever form they might come about, I think are going to be important. But I think there's going to be residual effects on this for a while, and it's really just making people feel comfortable and continuing along, giving them, you know, their individual experiences. I think I'd capsulize it like that.
Is it too early to sort of know, but is there going to be a sway towards, say, coastal rural experiences over those urban and city centre, or is it too early? Philip, over to you.
Yes. Hi, everybody. It's just nice to see all these wonderful faces, lots of familiar ones. So thanks for having us. The first thing I just wanted to mention was, you know, the one piece is simply the contracting piece, and that we've not talked about that yet. And one thing I think that aligns with what Meg was saying in terms of being consistent is as we all just need maximum flexibility with, you know, contractual terms. And really having things like, in particular, force majeure truly, totally spelled out so that there's a mutual understanding of what that means. And when those triggers are and those dates are in place for force majeure, I think, you know, obviously, I think a big goal of yours is to get business in the books. And if there's a way to sort of work with your other partners in destination around how can we align ourselves to be the most flexible as possible, obviously with the right of protection in place for yourselves. But that contractual piece alone, I mean, we're having to work so differently with our clients' legal and risk management teams. It's like a totally different level right now with that, in terms of people that are being involved within our clients' organizations that we've never had to deal with at a very high level when it comes to risk and compliance. So, you know, understanding that from your side, I think, is really an important thing as well, because obviously we're having to deal with it. So knowing we have partners that understand that would be extremely helpful. Moving towards, you know, that getting the contract side is that milestone, right? But then moving on to program design, thinking through exactly all the things people are saying, I think there's some great opportunities with England and within your region for partnerships with, places like Scotland, or even just within England around town and country experiences. I think those dual destination kind of splits are going to be really interesting. Say like a Four Seasons Hampshire Dorchester split. You have so many unique and intimate experiences to offer as a destination. And that's, to me, what you need to be highlighting right now, and how you can make it personal, customized, smaller groups, of course, that follow all those protocols. And then finally, the one thing I'll just add is, I think, the second half of 2021, even into 2022, probably the first half, I think that we're going to see more and more of potentially like a virtual awards dinner or a virtual awards celebration that's done in advance of the group travel awards, so that there's that group recognition experience within the winners, right? They earned this trip because they overperformed. But then, so they've had this recognition experience virtually, but then when they go on their trip, maybe in 2022, it's not that normal group experience. We can really kind of design it your way and do it their way. They can customize those experiences without having to worry about checking the box of, oh, did I have that cocktail award reception, or did I have that, those sorts of group experiences. So it's thinking really creatively about that, and bringing those ideas to your customers, I think we welcome as well.
Yeah, I have to echo exactly what Philip just said, because I thought one thing that I did not mention was hybrid, and especially for Europe, and for the UK, that will be very important of what that structure looks like, because for at least the first year, until you determine what will be your process, will it be that you have to have a vaccination to come? Who knows? I haven't heard that yet, but we have seen some other countries come out with that. So if that will be the case, not everyone will want to be vaccinated or get the vaccination. And companies are grappling with that right now about how do they either make that happen, or how, it's a very legal thing right now. So it's sort of out of the meeting planner's hands. But they will be looking to make the trip more inclusive. And so how do you do that with the ones that aren't going to go on the trip? That type of thing. That will be the short-term kind of fix that has to be solved.
Interesting to bring the hybrid element in. I'll come back to that, Meg. Amy, over to you, and then over to you, Anne-Marie.
Oh, thanks. I actually was just going to build on what Philip and Meg both were saying, as far as the virtual experience, but it's still very much going to be something that these individuals that win this incentive trip, they want it to be a shared experience for a few different reasons. One, of course, you can get the virtual piece of it, but how do we design this in a way that we can have them still bring a guest is going to be important still, so they can experience that together, but then also sharing it even on social media and throughout the company, and a safe way to do that, where I feel like people are going to go through this shift of, I'm so excited to share this, and but how do I do that and people not backlash and say, oh, you're doing something that's not safe, or really you're doing this and this is what you're representing with the company. So how do we give them some tools with that, and then make sure that any images in the back and that sort of thing are, of course, safety related. And then, of course, that just builds on promoting your destination. You don't want to miss out on that with all those posts, and then incentivizing other employees to want to win the same next year and perform at higher and higher levels. It all really ties in.
No, interesting point. It's that tools again, isn't it? But for the individual. Nick, can I come to you in a second? Go to Anne-Marie first.
Thank you, Karen. And I just want to thank you for putting me on this panel with all of my smart colleagues, because I just want to say, yes, what Meg said. Yes, what Teresa said. Yes, what Philip said. Yes, what Mark said. But I completely agree with what Meg said about safety and security. And then I was going to go on to what Philip said and bring up the contracting. In our contracts now, we're putting clauses in, like Philip said, and dealing with departments we've never dealt with. So did we always put a no walk clause in? Yes, but now it's critical because it's a safety issue. If we know that the one hotel has clean standards and it's done this, if you're moving 10 of our people even overnight, which we wouldn't allow, but that could be a safety issue because we haven't vetted that hotel. And the other question, when we were talking, what Amy was saying about, I think it was Amy that was talking about the vaccine passports and getting people feeling comfortable. We've been hearing lately that now there are vaccine passport counterfeiters. So it's how are we going to verify that these documents are correct? I heard this morning on the news that it's up 300% vaccine passport counterfeiters. So, and in dealing with our companies that are wondering, how do we verify that our clients feel safe? It's, for your destination, it's having it feel safe and know that we can verify those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Wow.
Just one thing on what you said, that Anne-Marie, about safety. How do you know it's safe? Is there confidence in having a safety mark, that all venues and destinations and even little cheese houses adopt, so it's the same safety standards, so that you're not having to analyze out the different names of different standards? Is that something that you see as important?
Oh, I think that's a great idea, Karen. And you just reminded me of another point that I was going to bring up. Was with we've had a few programs that have contracted during this time. And one of the issues we had was cleanliness, and the hotel had a cleanliness standard, but for the next contract, we had to write in, your hotel cleaning staff will be fully staffed. Because what the issue was that they had not brought all their people back from furlough. They couldn't clean the rooms quickly enough. So the check system wasn't getting their rooms clean quickly. So things we've never had to put into contracts, yes, do they have that safety mark, but who's enforcing that? And how can we be sure that that's done? And in most of the brands that we will work with for incentive trips to your destinations, we should feel pretty confident. But that's a whole different issue, is, are you fully staffed? Are you following the cleanliness passport?
Mm-hmm. Well, just before we move over to Nick, in regards to that safety mark, we have a mark called We're Good to Go. So We're Good to Go, that we push out to consumers at the moment, and that's called Know Before You Go. So it gives you all the detail of what you need to know. But We're Good to Go has been adopted by some 48,000 businesses across the UK. The majority of those are in England, and it's just increasing at a rate of knots. So rest assured that we're good to go, so that when you're ready to go, we're there for you. Nick, can I pass over to you?
Yeah, well, just on that point, thank you, Karen, which you stole from me brilliantly. But
Sorry.
But it also, the mark has quite a rigorous enforcement process as well. So it's not as if once you've got it, you can ease off, guys, because there is an audit process involved in that. I wanted to ask a question. I'm not quite sure how to phrase the question to be clear, so bear with me. When you are thinking in terms of an international destination, which I understand you think is still some time away, how much weight do you think you and your clients will put on, if you like, the standards of freedoms and standards of perception about the level of coronavirus? So here in Britain, this is a good example. Theoretically, by June the 21st, according to this roadmap and based on the vaccination program, we will have the vast majority of restrictions lifted. It is not entirely clear if there will be some form of social distancing required. The assumption there is. It is not entirely clear yet whether masks will be recommended. The assumption it is. But at this point, it's effectively the government saying, we're in pretty good shape here. Now, does that actually influence anything? Or are you more likely to be driven by perceptions and values of what's going on at home? And of course, ultimately, the company's view, your client's view as to risk or perceived risk that they'll take?
I'll jump in here.
Lindsay.
So the Canadian.
Oh, Lindsay, you next.
So I'm actually working on more European programs right now than I'm American programs, and that's because of the perception of, and that'll change quickly because the American rollout of the vaccine has been much more significant than I think people thought it would be. So I can already see it changing slightly for my 23-24 programs, but you know, kind of echoing perception is reality. So there is kind of a kindred. I find that Canadians beat to the European drum a little bit closer than you saw that in the ITII study as well. And going back to something that Mark said, it's about confidence and communication. So right now, my incentive travel programs are business as usual in means that they are still moving forward with all their incentive travel programs. I'm actually working on more incentive programs right now than meetings, because the meetings, they're looking at restructuring, redesigning, keeping some of them virtual. But we've already proven that we cannot have that same level, like Amy said, of building relationships and building memories, but we can have a virtual meeting. So they're kind of putting off decisions on meetings. Most of my clients are staying virtual on the corporate side for meetings through 2021. But my first incentive program is European Stockholm, and it's in April 2022. And I'm working on one for Vienna, and I'm working on another one for Lisbon. So going back to Karen, what you were saying about country versus city as well, it's not playing into that. What's playing into it is what we've talked about, is that confidence level of ensuring that the DMC partners and hotel partners, et cetera, understand the crisis protocol. If something does happen, what happens with media, with healthcare, with risk assessments, with contact tracing. I was surprised that I wasn't doing more rural versus urban programming, but I think part of it is that the infrastructure is there in the cities. And if social distancing is needed within the facilities, they have the larger space most of the time for some of the programs I'm working on. So I think it's very optimistic that we will be looking at more programs in Europe for the short term.
It's really interesting that the city is still up there as a choice, a preferred choice. Good to know. Lindsay, can I ask you to come in now? You wanted to.
Yeah, I agree with Jen, but I think it's 100% perception. What my client thinks about whatever place I pitch to them is what we go on. So if they've seen something in the news, it doesn't matter what it is. And unfortunately, something that you have to deal with is the fact that a lot of people just lump all of Europe together. So I think that's an issue that we have, is I might have a client that would be concerned about going anywhere in Europe because they saw news articles about what was happening in Italy, and they don't have any more information besides that. And so I think anything that I can put in front of them to show very specific to your destination, what the protocols are, not sending them 5 pages of all of the different protocols, but I really agreed with what Amy said, like those bullet points, those people think about perception. And so I think my clients will be happy to travel further as long as they don't think they will be perceived as putting people at risk or anything. So if we can start sharing stuff on social media about how we are doing this safely and how all of these protocols are in place, but having kind of those bullet points as opposed to lines and lines of all of this stuff. I think we all know the basic protocols that everywhere is following. So just those extra things that we can say, if I go to England, I feel safe because of this.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Sorry, I just want to build on what Lindsay said. The Meetings Mean Business, and USTA have started a website that it's about meeting safe in the US. I can't think of it right now. But basically what they're doing is gathering stories of incentive and meetings and conferences that are happening in the US and have been successful in managing the logistics of it and posting that. So, getting that out there and sharing those stories, to Lindsay's point, is very valuable to overcoming perceptions.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa?
Yes, and to spin off of that, I think like a real live app that gives people up-to-date information is important, because we all know this changes every day. So, and giving them, like Lindsay said, pages and pages is not helpful. They need quick facts and keeping them current.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's really good to know. So just before we sort of move on, the question was around sort of what would, does coastal, rural, urban work? We've covered that. And we've touched on what could make England your first choice destination. It's all about the smaller niche products. It's all about the guidelines around safety. It's about that connectivity. Although we're wanting live, we're still sort of in a virtual world, moving to hybrid. So that's really quite interesting. And then, the app and how we can stay connected. I'd like to move on now, if I may, to our campaign, Events Reimagined, that I'm hoping that you will have all been able to take a look at and see the video. It's a new campaign, and we're wanting to evolve that campaign. So, you know, having seen the video and thought about Events Reimagined, you know, England as a destination has not changed, but how England is used within events and incentives, etc., will change. What suggestions do you have for evolving that campaign? And I love the idea of the app. Lindsay.
I would take out the word new normal from your app. I feel like that phrase is not a positive phrase in our industry right now. I know that there is going to be a new normal, but I think referring to it as that is going to keep people stuck in what we've dealt with over the last year. So I don't know what phrase you should change it to, but I would recommend taking out any reference to new normal and kind of maybe leaning in more to what the site motto is of the year, which is, and America's motto, which is Build Back Better, something along those lines, as opposed to a new normal.
Okay, that's interesting. Teresa?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that's one of those phrases that we've all come to like cringe, like, you know, pivot and, you know, all the words of this last year. So I couldn't agree more. I loved the video. I loved, you know, the refresh, reimagine, and the whole concept. The only and I guess it's not negative feedback, but the only concern I have was that there was only one image that I saw that actually showed what that reimagined would look like. You know, there was someone with a mask, but otherwise it kind of looked like a lot of the incentives that we've been used to. So while we're saying it's refresh, reimagine, what about it actually is? What does that look like in that new?
Teresa, that was exactly my thought when I watched it. To be quite honest, there's only one frame with anything reimagined. That's the parts on the social distancing on that, you know, park area. I just thought maybe it was footage that was repurposed, and I didn't see anyone with a mask. I'm not saying that the mask has to be a face of it. Yeah. It's just currently the face of it right now in social distancing to make the climate perceive that it's safe. So I don't know.
I was thinking the same too. If I remember correctly, it said something about something about innovation and how we can be more innovative. And it was a really quick, almost I thought too quick view of what I looked like at the convention center, and it came in under this screen. And as they were saying innovative, it was a picture of them saying 6 feet apart. We're there already. I would say, you know, I was kind of craving like, oh, what have they come up with that's really innovative? You know, show me some examples.
No, that's really good to get this feedback. And, you know, some of that content was repurposed, you know, and it was, you know, brought out to kind of get people thinking, and we want the right kind of thoughts, not, oh, this isn't a reimagined. And I want to get your honest feedback, because, you know, if we're to get the right content, then we need to understand what is the right content for this segment of the market. So throw at me what it is we should be doing to speak to you and your colleagues, so that England's the first choice, no matter how outside the box it is.
One thing I wanted to add as well, Karen. First of all, was it video designed specifically for the incentive segment of the mice industry, or was it more of a mass mice?
Yeah.
Pardon me?
It wasn't specifically for incentives. It was for the industry to get it to think about refresh, reboot. Yeah, I think that you could take also as a thought, you know, after you create and are comfortable kind of with your overall mice video, but segmenting them into shorter, like really specific videos on showcasing, for example, in the incentive space, more of your beautiful countryside settings and intimate settings, and what you can do with all your beautiful assets you have, specific to incentive travel. So that would be one thought there. The other piece was, I did notice there was really hardly any diversity. I didn't see any, it seemed like it was really vanilla, like a lot of white people. I didn't see, and I think that's something that you really need to be thinking about, because you have to understand, especially in North America, and I'm sure you're well aware,
diversity, equity, inclusion is at the top of mind for all of our clients, and all of us at 110. We're really focused on that. So I think you needed to take that into consideration as you edit that and work on your final product.
Well, I agree, Philip. One of my thoughts was to break it down into some other segments, because I felt I think it conveyed a comfortable, safe kind of feeling of the area that you are ready, and to welcome events to really a world-class destination. But it seemed like it was focused really all on the city experience, and you've talked about the country experience, and maybe that's going to be more for, say, a video that's more specifically for incentives. But I think it's an opportunity for you to show the innovation, the things that are outside outside of the city. One of the things that I think is great about England is the proximity of the countryside to London, and it's pretty easy to get outside, and within an hour or two you're in the countryside, and it really is a totally different experience. To really provide a varied experience as opposed to going to different cities. It's always nice to do a country aspect. So I think that there's some opportunities there that you could focus a little bit more on the countryside too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's some really great ideas, and when we reflect back on what you're saying, it's like yes, yes, yes. So that's what we wanted. We wanted to get your eye, your professional eye, and your intelligence on what the incentive market needs. So in terms of video, we sort of know where we're going. What else can we do? How can we engage in a way that just opens up England as an incentive destination?
I don't know if I speak for everyone's group, but for mine, I can tell you the experience that we're looking for is an experience that you really wouldn't be able to do on your own, right? So for my group specifically, if you can show me things that people maybe didn't know about, or that, they couldn't just book on their own and do their own tour, show me something really specific, that would be a great draw for my group.
Lisa, thank you, Amy.
So I was supposed to go to England last March 14th for 16 days with 2 back-to-back groups. So the 2 previous summers, we did a couple of site inspections, and I mean, it's such a great city because there's so many different venues. And when I looked at that video, it looked more like a corporate city. And I think England has so much more to offer the city. I love it. It's such a melting pot, and the venues they're countless. I mean, and they're all historic and beautiful. And I mean, there's so many things to do there. And I feel like you shortchanged yourself on the video and didn't showcase the city enough, to be honest with you. I mean, like Abbey Road, I mean, that's just such a cool place. I mean, the palaces, and you've got some new things like the London Eye, but I mean, the history of London is probably one of the best in the world. And I feel like you didn't showcase that well enough, because that's what London's so famous for.
Mm-hmm. It's really good to know. Where were you due to be in England for the 16 days?
We were doing 2 back-to-back programs at the JW Marriott.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and they were going to do just something every night. So it was just really fun I planned it with Kate at Spectrum. I mean, we just had 2 fun weeks with her. So I got to know the city really well. And we went in the countryside one day, but I mean, it's just probably one of my favorite cities in the world. It's just amazing.
There's we have a program that was supposed to be April 2020, was pushed to September 2020, and now is going to be done in spring of 2022. But I'll tell you, the buzz that we create from the idea of a private dinner on the Tower Bridge. Yep. I mean, where else can you do that in such an iconic place? We have dinner planned at Kensington Palace. So I mean, those are the kind of things that are so promotable. So I mean, yeah, I think the video might have been it might be a little bit too corporate, a little too vague. It just sort of shows that we're sort of ready. We're not real busy right now. We're ready and welcome for you. And it seemed like that was maybe the intent. But I think the innovation part of it, and really focusing on, on some of the iconic, unusual things that you can do in London that you can't think of. I mean, we've had like a meal on the Great Wall. That sort of rivals the kind of thing. I mean, people will talk about that forever.
Yeah. So, and that's it. Jen, I'll come to you in a moment. I've heard about London being fantastic. London is just a metropolis. It is amazing. There are so many amazing things that you probably don't even know about. And, you know, Saltburn in Kent, for example, the places you don't know about. How can we sort of interest you in those destinations you know nothing about? What is it that we need to do? We need to create to make that happen. Mini video, you know, sort of websites, links to go to, blogs. What is it that you like to be communicated by? You know, what content do you like?
So Karen, I would just adding a Mark's and kind of answering your question at the same time. I think it goes back to perception, right? Because when you're pitching England, specifically London, so many people have backpacked through there, been there with their parents, whatever. So I find when I'm pitching it, there's like, oh, but there's, you know, it's everybody's been to London. So it's really those, and I find people don't read. So short videos with, and bringing in the characters. Ireland does this very well, where they bring in kind of some of the characters of the people, demonstrating kind of the uniqueness of it, and those small videos, because again, it's about the perception of, you know, the video was very corporate. Even the social distancing, that's great if you're targeting 2021 programs, but my clients aren't going on an incentive travel program to England if they have to sit 6 feet apart in a park. So that meant nothing to me, but the little hidden treasures are very, very valuable, because you got to get over that perception that, well, I've been there, done that. The Olympics definitely helped you. Kate and Harry and all that other stuff helps you because it puts you in the news all the time. So it's a positive, negative some days, but yeah.
Yeah. We may, well, we'd like to call on you after today because we did a Meet England virtual. So it was in more meetings, including incentives, where we met with planners in one-to-one meetings with our destinations. And we actually created 31 mini videos, some 40 seconds, some just over a minute long. And we call them England's Best Kept Secrets. You know, and is this good to have sort of a library, if you like, of all the best kept secrets? So you could have multiple best kept secrets about London, and then you could have a best kept secret about, you know, the northeast of England. So it's that kind of thing that I'm feeling could work well. So if we're able to share those with you, excuse me, after today and get your feedback, that would be really, really useful. Yeah.
I think that would be good. I haven't seen those before, and you know, I mean, we're effective in selling a client on a destination when we paint a picture, and the picture has to be painted visually. If they close their eyes and they see it because you've been on a good job in trying to explain it with words, or you, better yet, have some examples and showing people. Because if I, you know, I'm pitching 3 different destinations. Really, it's that 1 or 2 signature events, those hooks that people just like cling to, and it's like then all of a sudden they're really interested in that destination. And you know, but you just have to create that intrigue, that appeal. And it sounds like maybe some of those videos would be helpful, short snippets to be able to say, let me show you an example of what it would, you know, what this looks like. Yeah, definitely. Lindsay, you wanted to come in there?
Yeah, my thought would be, I agree with Jen. I think it would be useful for me if you had those kind of videos put together in a format of a potential itinerary. So I could show a client basically day to day, and you can put in there also some videos highlighting London, because everybody's been there, because it's an important place to see in your life. So peppering in some reminders of why they went to London in the first place and why you can still enjoy London, but then you can add these extra very special things to make it a whole new experience, and being able to show a client what the entire experience would be like, as opposed to just showing them some snippets, I think would be a huge seller for my clients.
No, that's very useful information. So it's London and adding in. Anne-Marie, you wanted to come in there?
Yeah, I would just agree with both Jen and Lindsay that I agree with Jen that people don't read. So the little videos are great. And also I love your idea of, the best kept secrets, because as Amy said, we're all tasked with creating a program that is going to blow their minds, and particularly now, and something they can't do on their own. So if we're the ones that can provide this, that's awesome. And if you've got it in a format that we can use it to show to our clients, all the more powerful.
Well, what I aim to do is go away from today with Layla and work up some absolutely specific brand new ones. And these are, they are homegrown. So we go to our destinations and they are the ones that create the film and the video. So they're very real, very live, and it's the people in those destinations that you will hear. We feel that they're quite special, but it's great to know that they may form part of the offer here. Nick.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask a question which I hope isn't too ignorant. When you are looking at outside of London destinations, where is your first point of contact to learn about that destination? Is it the convention bureaus, the destination management organizations, or is it Meet England?
We work with a lot of global DMCs. So that's usually the easiest way for us is we already have one sales contact and we would say, who do you have in this area so that we can get some more information?
Okay, so you don't have any, does anyone have any contact experience of our own convention bureaus, be it in Manchester, Birmingham, wherever it may be? I'd be interested, any learnings or takeout from that? Okay.
Well, I'll jump in on that. Yeah, we with CVBs, very limited. I agree with Lindsay. We'll tend to go to, DMCs. We crowdsource internally. We go to our colleagues and say, where have you been? What are you seeing? What are you proposing? And that tends to sometimes create kind of a circular. We're all kind of proposing the same thing because we're all talking to each other. But I guess I tend to use those resources more readily than reaching out to a CVB.
I would agree with
I think the point, sorry.
I was going to say, I would agree with both Lindsay and Teresa, but I would say that when we do have strong convention bureau contacts, we do reach out to them. So, there are some contacts that really are out there and you're aware of. And when I have those, I will definitely reach out to those. So, and now we'll reach out to you guys. So
I have also in the past at IMEX, if I'm not familiar with a destination, when I go to IMEX, I would look up their CVB and I might meet with them. So I would say just for your reference, IMEX is when I would consider meeting with CVBs, with all of that. So that needs to be the place where they really hit hard, because I have built relationships from a CVB and gone to a CVB from proposals, but only because I met them at IMEX.
Okay.
Nick, did you want to finish off there, or did you want to come back with anything, Nick?
No, nothing to add on that. Thank you very much.
Okay, so another ask of us, I feel, is that we need to connect you with the people in those destinations. So to have those connections with the CVBs, so that's something that we'll take away as another action. Lisa, sorry, you want to come in there?
I'm just going to do a spin off of Lindsay, but for IMEX, I don't go see a specific hotel. I go to learn about a destination and who's my contact going forward, because that's your first point of contact and that's how you learn about the country. And I just started shifting my mannerisms at IMEX a couple of years ago and just doing that, because I found myself I learned more that way than just going to see one hotel. I mean, I just feel that I get more out of that.
Well, we have a good position because we are totally impartial, but we represent, upwards of some 40 plus destinations. Each one has their own unique experience. So we're a very good first point of contact, but we want to connect you with what we say, the wider family. And hopefully we'll see you at IMEX America.
Karen, I just wanted to jump in there as well, if that's okay. Exactly piggybacking on what you just said, which is the point that we're neutral. I wanted to also add that because of the fact that we're so neutral, we won't be pushing one product over the other, or one destination over the other. And you can always know that if you even keep us in the loop with any requests. I know that some of you have really good DMC contacts as well, and that those are invaluable too. But with us, you know that we're not trying to push one thing over the other. So it truly is neutral advice, and we're here just to help you. We don't get anything out of it from our side besides the satisfaction of helping you and connecting you with the right person. And I think that's important to stress here as well.
Yeah, Layla, that's super important, because honestly, that's half the time why how your RFP is shared or how the information about your client is shared is very sensitive to all of us. It's very confidential. So each one of the CBBs does it differently. And so it's super important that you're very forthright and upcoming about like, how you will share the information or won't share the information. Thank you.
CBBs
we're there as your support. Sorry, Mark.
I was just going to say CBBs are a strange cat when you go across the world. I mean, there are different types, different organizations, different things that, you know, lead them to run the way they do. So that's one of the problems is really, I've tried within my organization to really say we need to be talking to the CBBs. We need to find out, you know, is there support that we can get? But let me say something about that neutrality that you mentioned. That's good as far as neutrality and knowing, you know, first and foremost, what you have to do is address the needs if we come to you. So we don't want you to be necessarily neutral. We want your advice. Okay, so that doesn't mean that you can't be neutral and at first be considering the broad spectrum there. But I don't want you to water it down so much because you're afraid of sort of pointing us in a direction that might really fit well. Okay, because, well, how would the others perceive that? The designated DMOs and stuff that we have that are, you know, that are really helpful are ones that will help us walk through that and will indeed help us narrow things down versus just make sure we know all of what's available. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. And, you know, we play several roles really. So we know what our destinations have. And the more we get to know our clients and prospects and build relationships with you guys, then we know what you need. And what we do is we are not afraid of matching, you know, the right mix of destination, experience and client/group. So we're always there with your end in mind. So rest assured in that regard.
Well, I'll give you an example with hotel representation companies, sort of same thing. I mean, the reps that we've worked with very closely are the ones that really have a conversation with you and try to learn and understand and will point you, rather than being nudged by the fact that they just took on this new hotel and they want to promote, you know, they're thinking in the back of my mind, I got to tell them about this hotel. Well, no, you got to give us what we need. And I've had hotel reps before. I had one example, I won't say exactly who, but they said, you know, what you're looking for, I think there's another hotel. It wasn't even one they represented. And they said, I think really this is your best fit. Knowing that they're building that relationship and knowing that they're building trust and confidence in our ability, the reasons to turn to them. And I'll never forget that when they did that. And it ended up being a really good fit. And we did end up booking it. And of course, I made sure they knew where I got the lead from in case they could ever join us.
Yeah. Now that's really good. Just one example that I like to share is a couple of years ago, met with a gentleman in Geneva. He'd chosen where he wanted his group to go in London. Well, it was London or Hong Kong. London was proving to be quite expensive. And sort of that was it. Oh, and Rome was in the mix as well. So when we sort of talked about, okay, well, why is London expensive? There was one choice for London. Well, we knew that there were two other options for London, but we also knew there were two other destinations that would fit his needs perfectly. He visited the other two destinations. He went to London. He chose London. He got the experience he wanted. He got it within the budget that he wanted. So, you know, we really do help, for the right decision to be made. So I'm just saying that so you can rest assured that we're there for you. Yeah. I'd just like to ask a question. I don't normally like to talk about competition, but could you share with me what your best incentive experience is? Hopefully it's in England, but if it isn't, Where is it and why was it the best experience? Who would like to go first? You have so many experiences. Right, Philip, I'm going to call on you first.
That is a really tough question because I mean it's so contextual and it just depends on the group, of course. But I think that some of the best experiences we've had, honestly, have been with the incredible over-the-top experience and hospitality felt like in Bangkok or in Thailand, for example. They do a great job of showcasing their cities, their other places, their more country experiences, their hospitality is second to none. They're committed to safety. Thailand just does a great job, and I think they have a very strong CVB. Both Tika and TSEB working together in partnership. So I always look at Thailand as sort of a gold standard.
Okay, that's really good to know. Andrea, can I come to you and ask you what your to date best experience has been and why it's been?
Yeah, and actually I might be the unique one on the call. For one, I work for a corporation as the director of events, so I only plan events for our one company. Two, I've never been to Europe, never been to England, and haven't. It recently made our short list of potential destinations for our 2022 trip. But ultimately, we've always gone more on the tropical side. So Costa Rica probably being, I guess, my number one most favorite trip that we've done so far. It was a little bit off the beaten path. It wasn't a destination that was easy for most people to get to. And we really just wanted to create this experience for them of something, I think like several people have mentioned already, something that they wouldn't be able to do typically on their own. Our trips are usually in the winter, between October and January. So that's one reason why we've stuck with more of the Caribbean destinations, because it's just warmer that time of year. But we are looking for more experiences, like I said before, that they can't normally or wouldn't normally just plan on their own. So we're, like I said, looking at different European destinations. But I think one thing that would really help us, like you mentioned, is those videos. And I forget who said it. It might have been Lindsay. Sample itineraries, like what exactly, for a 3-day trip, for a 5-day trip, like what unique experiences can we bring to this group that even if they have been to England before, what can be done that would really highlight that experience.
Really good. Thanks, Andrea. Jen, how about you? What's been the top of your list so far?
It's a bit of a challenge, like Philip said. I mean, we've had several very successful programs overseas, specifically London as well. I think probably, I don't know. It's hard to narrow it down. I mean, we've had probably the most that we've had is Dublin, Ireland. We probably have had 7 programs there in the last couple of years, pre-COVID. And because it's just, it's easy to maneuver, easy to go around, easy to get out to the country. People are surprised by the characters and the things that we've developed with our DMC partners over there. So, but we did the same thing working with Spectra in England as well for our large incentive program. But yeah, I mean, there's just so many, they're so unique. You can't compare a South Africa or a, Bahamas to an England.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So the ease of access, ease to get around is really quite important. And England is, such a small, unique destination, and we have London right in the heart of it. So really good to know. Amy, how about you? What's sorry,
I was just going to say too, promoting your pre and post options, because we're always looking. So most of ours are 4 or 5 days, but we know that people are going to extend pre or post. So it's extend within England itself for sure. And if you can facilitate that, delivering that post vacation or pre-vacation to the attendees, that in any way, that's very helpful. And then it's, there's direct air to London, but then there's from London, the gateway of Europe as well. So selling that as an extension is very helpful for us.
And that's really interesting. It's something I wanted to pick up early in that England, it shoulders onto 3 other nations.
Right.
So Northern Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. So, we could bring those very nicely into those packages that we talked about earlier, and those 3
Karen, I also wanted to mention one other thing I wanted to not forget to mention that since Jen brought it up was, one of the things we're seeing as we've opened up registration for some of our first live incentive travel experiences that are happening. We have had one happening in middle of June in Hawaii. And the winners all had the choice of deferring to the next year. And every single winner decided to go this year. They wanted to go, which is, I think, awesome news. And the other thing is that we're seeing is 64, last time I checked, 64% of them are either pre or post extending, which is a very high rate of pre or post extending. So I just think that there's another, to Jen's point, especially coming out of COVID, the ability, those pre or posts are going to be really important and making, because people are going to like, well, if I'm going to London, guess what? I'm going to go to Scotland and live my dream of staying at Gleneagles. That sort of thing. In fact, I was just talking with my friend Rachel from Gleneagles yesterday about just this. So I think that's just something to bear in mind, that because once they're there, everyone's been pent up for so long, they're going to want to like do all the things. Right.
I know that's really valuable information, because I have not thought about pre and post as part of a fairly long incentive program. So really, really good to know. Good to know. Amy, how about your experiences and what's top of your list?
I think myself personally, I think one of my favorites was definitely Switzerland, the Interlaken area. We did the Giesbach Falls Hotel. I mean, very secluded. Talk about like resetting and rebooting, the opening up you can have a room with the windows that open to your balcony. They're literally at the base of the waterfall and the beautiful lake, and plenty of day trips from there if you wanted to go to Lauterbrunnen or if you wanted to, go up the mountain. Probably that. As far as our group, very similar to Andrea, we do sort of kind of navigate more so towards the Caribbean, but more like unknown. So Kanawan is where we were supposed to go before the pandemic hit. I think for the most part, we were having everybody go through Barbados and then take a little ferry or the puddle jumper plane over to Kanawan. So you won't see Hawaii or Mexico and that sort of thing on our list.
So we need to get you over to England so that you can experience England and appreciate what it has to offer. Seeing is believing, isn't it? So because I'm conscious that you've not yet brought a group over.
That's right.
I believe so. We need to get you to get a group over there. Mark, if I can come to you, share with us your experiences so we can learn.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the client. You can have a very successful Fun and Sun, which is basically just Fun and Sun and lots of activities, or more unique things. One thing that's been very popular for us in the last several years has been river cruising. And it's just because of the ability to see some of the greatest destinations and still be in one place. And they also provide chartering, full charter opportunities. And I was going to say some of our most successful ones have been buyouts, where we can buy out a property, whether it's a small boutique property for a smaller group or whether it's a large property for a larger group. Being able to really customize that experience and get the 100% of that hotel's attention on you and your group, I think is important. As far as unique experiences, it's sort of hard to beat, like a South African safari kind of thing. That is so unique. But I love Switzerland. I love the mountains. So I think there's a lot of things that you can do in the mountains where there's activities, and especially because the demographics on most of our clients' programs are continuing to lower in age a bit. And then also people are more active. So, those really unique activities, I think, are important to point out.
No, really interesting. And how about you, Meg? What's really does it for you, and what's your best experience to date?
Oh my gosh, well, I agree with everyone. They're all tops for sure. But I mean, definitely the UK holds so many great memories of really exclusive things done and special. I mean, you really do a great job. And as a whole, in the industry, all of the partners talk, all the vendors are very well connected and really do a great job partnering, and we love that. So that's super special, and it comes off so authentically and very hospitable. So thank you for that. I think Australia and New Zealand do a great job of that as well. They have an incredible CBD component. So I agree with everybody else, though. There's so many different really great options. So sadly, you do have a really good count set out there.
Oh, thank you for your feedback. Anne-Marie, can I come to you to ask you for your best experiences?
Sure. And again, like all of our colleagues, I agree that it's hard to pick one. I go back again to what Amy said, is that, and to what Mark said about it being about your clients. Some of our clients may think the 4 a.m. getting into the Japanese fish market was the coolest thing they've ever done. Not everybody wants to get up then. The African safaris are great. We've done dinners in the Eiffel Tower. We've done lovely dinners in castles in England. I come back to what you said about surprises. We did a tour of the Uffizi in Florence, and then there's a secret corridor that only certain groups can go into with an art display in the Vasari corridor. So, I mean, I think it's all about, because you don't want, I think one of the problems of having the best experience you've ever had is how do you top it? We have a lot of winners that win every year. So you want them to know that as a company, that's our goal, is that, this is going to be the greatest thing you've ever done until next year. So I agree with great service and surprises, and really making whatever it is you're doing something they can't do by themselves.
That's really interesting. It's great to get all these experiences that you feel are at the top of that list. So we need to take that away and sort of work our magic so that England is part of that mix moving forward. And England is known for its traditions and its destinations and so on. But I think what we need to do is we need to scatter the unknown in amongst that to give you more to consider and more to share with your clients. So thank you for your feedback. Lindsay, can I come to you about your experience and what stand out for you?
Yeah, some of the places that people have already mentioned, I love South Africa, is my favorite place, but the only place that hasn't been mentioned yet that I always go back to is Costa del Sol, because you can do so many different day-long activities if you're based like in Marbella. So we take groups to Marbella, and then you can do one day of Ronda, which is a really interesting town. You can do a day in Mijas, which is like a whitewashed, feels very old, authentic Spanish. And then you can take them to Gibraltar, and then you can take them to Morocco. And it's just, I can't think of another destination that is so close to so many different places that are accessible within an easy day trip. So that one's always successful for us.
That's really interesting. And I've not heard that itinerary before. So, and I know those places. So that's really interesting. Thank you. And Teresa, share with us your highs and lows. Not lows, highs. Let's keep it high.
For me personally, I mean, it would be like choosing a favorite child. I don't know. I've been to so many wonderful places, and many that have been mentioned, and that would be really difficult. But when you first said what has been some of your most successful incentive experiences, oddly enough, the first thing that came to mind for me was several years ago when it was Zika virus, which seems so laughable now, how much we made of Zika virus in light of everything we've seen this past year. But we had a very high-end client at that time who had, I think, 5 or 6 incentive programs operating internationally within a very short time frame. And because of Zika, they wanted to rebook them all, and they brought them all domestic, which should have been maybe not quite as exciting to some of those attendees, but we were able to put together programs that were really exclusive and really unusual. And I think Anne Marie used the word surprising. And so I think that that's really what makes any incentive memorable. The destination is a big part of it, of course, but it's really about that aspect of surprise and something that was unexpected that you can go home and have some bragging rights about. That's what makes a really great incentive experience.
No, thank you, and very, very valuable feedback indeed. So now we all know what's the top of your list. So we just need to go away and work our magic and give you an England proposition. So thanks so much for all your feedback. Now I'm conscious of time, so we have just over 10 minutes left, and I think, you know, the discussion for me has been fantastic, insightful, educational. So I am going to sort of wrap up the questions there. What I would like to do is I'd like to pass over to Nick for his sort of final thoughts and views. We've got lots to take away, so Layla and I will certainly be busy, but I'd like to pass over to Nick. And again, thank you so much for your openness and honesty. Nick.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you, everyone. My first US client, when the business was very young, I won my first US client, and I was very excited that we were doing something international. And I got to know her very well, and she just kept saying to me one thing, you know, for our business, she said, and it's equally true of your business, is the only voice that really matters is the voice of the customer. And for me today, it's still true as it was. Actually, I think you said I've been in the business 25 years. It's longer, I'm afraid. And listening to you firsthand, I think the test of the meeting for me was actually, I was surprised on a couple of things, which I think is really useful to get in a round table, because it's easy for us, particularly in this virtual world, to start reaching and forming opinions about things that are not founded in good cast iron customer feedback. So I'm grateful for that. And very interesting, you were talking, for example, my few takeouts on it, and there's many, but you were very all quick to agree about the future shape and size of groups, which you know, I understand that they will be smaller as a result of all the circumstances we've talked about. And for me, that was an opportunity, because actually my thinking is we've got a job to do to talk about what is outside of our core cities and how well accustomed they would be to suit those sorts of audiences. And there's a job to do there. And that coupled with I suppose it was my second surprise. We live in a country that is steeped in huge heritage and history, some amazing buildings, some amazing stories. And actually sometimes I think we take that for granted and forget the impact that that can have on other people, because we think it's really important to be very modern, forthright, glass buildings, glass structures, look like the modern age ahead, forgetting at times how we look to customers, which brings me back to listening to you. And in a way, I take out of that the importance of us of striking the heritage, the English heritage, meeting the innovation and the creative side of our country, and the personality. A superb point made. And when you talked about Ireland and personality, we all know what you mean instantly. So that, I think, coupled with this sense of pent-up demand, that enthusiasm, that energy to go forward, we've learned an awful lot from this today. I hope your takeout has been useful. And I hope this will be an ongoing process, because I'm more convinced than ever what's happening. Karen, you remain Britain and England, obviously #1 sales lady. I can't tell you how refreshing it is to find this enthusiasm still there after 1 year of lockdown. So thank you for that, and thanks to Site for bringing us all together. I don't think that's it entirely. I'm going to hand back to Layla, but from my bottom of my heart on the Visit England, thank you very much indeed for your contributions today.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Nick. And thank you everyone for all of these wonderful insights. So many takeaways from today. I mean, smaller programs, more incentives than meetings. Hybrid was discussed, vaccine passports, new normal, removing that from future communication, diversity and the importance of reflecting that. And also sample itineraries are very important, importance of pre and post, and keeping everything surprising for the incentive industry. So many important points, so many more. And we'll look at this in more detail as well, like Karen said, and take all these insights and use it for our future as well. In the meantime, I wanted to also let you know that this is just the beginning of the conversation. I'm going to be in touch with all of you afterwards, so you'll receive a follow-up from me and hopefully future phone calls and meetings as well. And hopefully, like I said in the beginning, meeting you all in person on the other side of this pandemic. I also wanted to, after thanking you, send it over to Samantha, because I think, Samantha, you had some final comments for us. Is that right?
Yeah, I wanted to just thank everybody so much. I mean, for me, just listening in has been a really interesting conversation. And just, you know, obviously I work for Site, I don't work for MeetEngland, but just hearing the feedback and how there's a lot of similarities, how there's some differences, and overall, we all just want to get back to traveling, right? And incentives need to have that true experience factor. So how can everyone make that for their programs is the answer. So thank you all. Thank you, MeetEngland, Layla, Karen, and Nick. Thank you so much for your support of Site. Thank you to all of the incentive travel experts on this call. I mean, you all truly know your niche and know your business so much. So I truly valued hearing your feedback. I just wanted to say thank you so much from my heart as well. I am probably going to see some of you next week at our Incentive Summit Americas event, which will be an in-person event, which is super exciting. And for those of you that I don't get to see there, I hope to give you a virtual hug now and see you soon in another event coming up. So thank you again for all of your support. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And if I could just end by saying, you know, it's the end of the meeting, but it's very much the beginning of a fruitful relationship. And we look forward to working with you all and inviting you to England. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
If I
Thank
may,
you.
I'd like to just
Bye,
say
guys.
thanks.
Thank you.
If I
It
may
was
just-
really great
Thank
meeting
you.
you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.